Welcome to episode 6 of the Hipsters United podcast. My name is Chris, and accompanying me this week are Jill.
Hello.
And Andrew.
Hello.
As you may have seen on the blog this week, regular panelist Jason finished the school year this year and will be taking the next couple of weeks off from the show. Jill, do we need to take some time out here for you to get a hold of yourself after the karaoke stylings of Zero?
Maybe just a minute. It's so ludicrous. Anyway.
We're probably gonna have a bit shorter of an episode this week as we prepare for next week's Adore special. As a reminder, if you missed the announcement last week, in honor of the 10th anniversary of the release of Adore, we're devoting what may end up being more than one episode entirely to the album. And if you'd like to be on the show, record yourself talking about something you liked or didn't like about Adore or the Adore Tour, and send it to me at Chris, that's CHRIS, at hipstersunited.com. And please keep your comments to less than 60 seconds and reduce background noise as much as possible. And also, I've gotten one email already with a topic request for the Adore show, so if there's anything you specifically want to hear us talk about, shoot me an email and we'll try to fit it in if we can. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, this week we're going to take a step back to a time when Billy had long wavy hair and wore paisley shirts. I am speaking, of course, of the pre-Gish era. So allow us to indulge in some major geeking out this week and direct all complaints to the comments section of the show notes. But before we go too far into bootleg collector territory, this week Billy made an appearance at a Duran Duran concert and lent his guitar skills to the song The Chauffeur. Here is Jill with the details.
Well, I ran across a message board post on the Duran Duran fan site this week about a recent show on Wednesday in just outside of Chicago in Rosemont, Illinois, at the Rosemont Theater that the Pumpkins have actually frequently played in the past. Billy lent his guitar playing solo skills at the end of the show for the Duran Duran track, The Chauffeur. And a couple of fans actually took pictures and recorded a video. So live on the blog, you can see a couple of YouTube clips of that. And I thought it was especially interesting to note that one of our commenters, Stacy, mentioned in the clip itself, you can hear someone say that they went to high school with Billy. So I think it's very telling that all of the early to mid 30s crowd is getting a little bit of culture corroboration or something at this point in time. So all of these old, artists that they grew up with have started collaborating, and I think it's pretty interesting. They obviously became friends with Duran Duran on the recent Australian tour. So
do you think this will? Do you think there'll be a reciprocal arrangement here? Is Simon going to join Billy during the 20th anniversary spectacular shows this fall?
Well, that's interesting with other artists, but this is not the first time that the Pumpkins have collaborated with Duran Duran, and particularly Simon Le Bon, because they actually did I think he appeared on a version of Night Boat earlier. I think it was in 96. I
think it was 98. I believe it was during the Adore tour, like that beginning leg in Europe.
That's right. So they obviously have a friendship. I'm not sure how deep it runs, but they certainly are very very vanguard artists, each to their own. So
I guess that adds another possibility along with the artists that Andrew mentioned last week for the surprise guests this fall.
I guess. It should be interesting. Well, and it's good to see them collaborating with musicians that actually, have chops. But it's hilarious, some of these pictures. Even Duran Duran has anteed up with the MacBook Pros on tour. So they've obviously been adjusting to the to the signs of the times. So.
And there was no other news out of the Pumpkins camp this week, but we did have a discussion on the blog earlier in the week about very early Pumpkins tune 6234. And according to spfc.org, this song, which was only played once as far as we know on August 10th, 1988, was originally a song by Billy's previous band, The Marked, called Hey. And you can't hear the exclamation mark, but there is one there at the end of the name. I have two clips to play. The first is Billy introducing the song, seeming to bear out that it indeed was originally an older tune.
This next song is a step forward, step backwards, all at the same time.
So we all know about that in our little lives. What do you need?
And the second clip is a clip of the song itself to get us in the mood to talk about it. And listen for James coming in at the wrong time and out of key on backup vocals.
Uh-huh.
If this is what you want, this is all I have to offer you.
Well, Jason contended that the 6234 moniker may have been an incidental labeling on the tape of this concert rather than a new title for the song Hey. And I couldn't find the scan of the cassette online, but I did do a bit of digging into early Pumpkins song titles, and the statistics seem to bear out Jason's theory. So obviously this is all speculative, but here's some little bit of Pumpkins trivia for the two of you. How many songs known to have been recorded or played by the Pumpkins in some form, obviously they were varying band members in that early stage, on or before April 30th, 1989, do not have the title of the song somewhere in the lyrics?
Oh, gee, let me dig into my hat of tricks and pull that answer out for you.
Yeah, that's a tough
Chris, I would be really concerned if either one of us was able to really come up with that answer.
Oh, I would too, but take a guess.
We're gonna have to fire you.
What do you think? I was already fired last week, so...
Gosh.
Are there 5 songs?
You're correct.
Wow.
From my count, the answer was 5. That would be The Vigil, Nothing and Everything, 6234, Snap, and Rhinoceros. And
wow.
I had Nothing and Everything, and I figured 4 wasn't a good round number to add on to that. So that was a lucky guess.
Oh, don't fool us. I know you knew the actual number. But there were actually 17 songs that did have the title in the lyrics. I won't go through all of them, but from the early August 10th, 1988 show, you had Armed to the Teeth, Bleed, There It Goes, My Eternity, I Fall, Holiday, and Screaming. So almost the entire show besides 6234 and The Vigil. And I believe The Vigil was actually labeled on early tapes, possibly including Nothing Ever Changes, as It Suits Me Well, which is, I don't know if you'd call it the chorus of the song, but a prominent lyric in the song. And obviously a lot of the songs were in a nebulous state at the time with vague, constantly changing titles, but there does seem to be a preponderance of songs with straightforward titles from the lyrics, so Jason may be right on that. Do either of you guys have any thoughts, or have I gone way too far down the rabbit hole?
Well, I think it's amazing that they could keep it together to name songs. They were doing so much LSD back then.
Well, yeah, like I posted in the comment section of the blog post for this about this song. My own personal theory is that it is 6234 fits in pretty well with a Western Chicago street address, West Side Chicago. I have no idea where Billy's dad lived. I've seen the pictures of it from the documentaries and things where he's shown the house and where he had the home studio and where I think James and Billy and Jimmy originally were first practiced together, and Darcy, of course. But sort of that was my way of thinking that maybe it's the house address. But the studio. I don't know. I remember seeing that, as Jason also wrote in the comments of that blog post, that it definitely said 6234 on the original tape that came down from an unnamed source of this show. So what 6234 means is anybody's guess, whether it's meaningless or a mislabel or just a little joke on the part of the person who passed down the recording. Well, maybe we'll find out later, but it's probably not a huge,
not a top priority.
not a top priority to find out. Yeah.
Gosh.
You don't think that's what Billy's working on in between jamming with Duran Duran?
Have you listened? If you're into the new age, new wave stuff, go right ahead. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I mean, I think there were 3 marked songs that got carried over to the Pumpkins. 6234, obviously, which was Hey, Spiteface, and the marked song Death of a Mind, which became Sun. And, I mean, Sun and Spiteface are pretty decent for early Pumpkin songs, but this one just seemed, I was kind of curious why they picked this one to keep going. They were much better, even marked songs than this.
Oh gosh, Chris, now that you've mentioned Spiteface on the podcast, we're going to have some dude commenting, Spiteface!
Yeah, I probably should have had a clip here to play of someone in the crowd screaming Spiteface after I said that.
Gosh. What's amazing to me is that this other blog, The Large-Hearted Boy, actually picked that up as the track to check out on the recent show upload. That's so ludicrous of all the tracks to pick. This guy must be a bigger fan than we even thought, because he's shown up on the blog a few times. So,
even
really,
with songs from that show, there are definitely better songs just from the August 10th, 1988 show.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Oh, gosh.
Well, last week after our show review, Jason brought up the fact that when it comes to opening the archives, fans may be reluctant to pay for something that they already have in high quality. And Billy's mentioned on a number of occasions now that he's planning on releasing early demos this Christmas, but by my count there already are quite a few early demos in circulation that have high-quality sources. So we've got Nothing Ever Changes, we have the self-titled and Moon demo tapes, we have the real-time studio sessions. Jill, you mentioned the LSD earlier. I think that's appropriate in this context. We've got Mashed Potatoes, and we have even the Gift Basement tape. So my first question is, given that the band didn't really have the financial resources they have today or their own studio to record all these songs in, how much really exists from this period that we don't already have?
I think in opening the archives, Billy is aiming to release a lot of live tapes because, I think that as they progress and as they have this sort of unconventional approach to releasing albums or not albums or tracks or EPs or whatever they're doing right now, depending on who you ask in the media, I think that they're really becoming more and more of a live band, and I think that people are realizing that. I mean, I don't know that if you asked the band, they would fess up to that, but I think that they really are kind of a live band. And I know that in the quote-unquote archives, DAT recorded a lot of the shows after, or ADAT recorded a lot of the shows after a certain point, directly from the soundboard, and, I think he wants a lot of that to get out. I'm not sure what demos are still left out there. I'm sure there are a lot, but if Corgan can produce as much as he has in the year and a half since they've gotten back, or really the year that they've gotten back together, you have to wonder about the, 17 years prior to that. Is it really that long already? God. It's more than that, I guess. But, I think that they want to liberate a lot of those old shows that are live because it really shows how far they've come. And, to kind of rebut Jason's point, I don't know that a lot of people are very aware of the archive from a sort of general fan standpoint. I think that people are aware that there is a substantial glut of live shows available, but not as comprehensive as it is. And plus, you can't underestimate the power of the band's official marketing. If they're going to come out and say this is worth buying or this is worth joining a fan club to get, I think that there's a compelling reason there to consume more than anything. Because we are certainly in the minority as far as the fan base is concerned. I think there's a lot of folks out there that aren't as aware of the options. So,
what do you think, Andrew?
Yeah.
Well, I would agree that yes, there's probably not much studio type stuff from the very very early years that's not already out. But I would agree that with Jill that. Probably what they're most interested in doing is sort of capturing some of the earlier live shows, the very earlier live shows where there wasn't people taping with high quality taping equipment, or where over the years the cassette tape generations sort of, took the edge off some of the recordings that have passed down through the years and have, I think, one thing you can already point to is that at the final, what was the final Metro show, they, as a door prize on the way out, they passed out the recording of the first show at the Metro that they ever did back in October '88. The old show that used to be labeled April 10th for forever until Dave Aslan, I think, kind of figured out that was a European. Someone transposed the European style date to April the 10th instead of October 10th or October 4th, and it was actually the 5th. But so that was, you can already point to that marker in history where Billy has.
So I would agree that they are probably more likely to release shows from back then, and personally, I would be more excited about seeing that just because we do have all these demos. I was going through the known recording sessions page on spfc.org, and the only thing I could see as a possibility for a recording session would be the one in 1990 that produced Translucent and Jesus is the Sun, which we don't have much information about out there, but that's the only one I could see that really was kind of vague and we didn't already have the source for. And I mentioned demos rather than shows because I believe in one of the many post-Rock Walk interviews, Billy specifically said releasing early demos for Christmas. So that he may mean early songs, like early shows, but since he said demos, I thought that kind of implied that he was going to release some of the studio recordings of these shows.
Well, but doesn't that beg the question of what defines early in the band's history at this point?
It does, and if you go back even before 1990, there's plenty of Billy and James recorded at home on with a drum machine. I really doubt Billy would release anything that early, but you could be right. Early could mean Siamese Dream demos. Mm-hmm. Early could mean Gish demos.
I tried to find some information about a session that was done outside of Atlanta one time that I really couldn't find much about. I think that was in 92, so 92 or 93. So I don't really know what early means.
And I actually lived in Marietta at the time where the Pumpkins were recording. If I wasn't a crazy fan at the time, and if I was, people should have let me know. I could have gone over there and sat outside and tried to record them out the window or something.
Oh, that's a scary thing to confess to.
But I've been operating under the assumption all along that Billy wouldn't release something that hardcore traders already have because they're kind of, I would think, the primary audience for this release. But do you think that's necessarily the case? If he's releasing this to the public, are we really the real audience for it?
I don't know. I think that they are really trying to broaden the fanscape. And attract other new fans. There are just legions of kids out there right now that are hearing the band for the first time. So I would imagine, kind of like I said earlier, that not only are they becoming a live band, but they're trying to kind of market that out to people because they're unsigned, or they're not unsigned, but they're independent and not really obliged to any sort of record contract right now. So much set the agenda for what the band is to become. And if they decide that they're going to go on tour and do all these great tours that they have identified, like the era tours and stuff, I think it begs the question to kind of, they need to identify themselves as a touring band. I know that this is a little esoteric, but, I hate to use them as an example, but look at Dave Matthews Band. Do you know any? I know so many people that have seen them live on tour that have never bought an album, because they're an experience. They've marketed themselves as an experience. They have lots of collaborations with other people, and they bring, Tim Reynolds on stage, and they do all these sort of jammy things. And they've marketed themselves very successfully as a live band with a very sort of rabid fan base. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'm really not sure. And I know this diverges from your original question of what are they going to release, but I think Billy has yet to determine that. And one thing that occurred to me is, They may have an archive of video stuff too. You look at, I know there was an August 25th show in 1990 that has a video source. I've seen the professional video that I believe, this is really stretching it, but I believe that Mike Potential was the original person in charge of unearthing that video, or he recorded it and sold it for money or something. But there are some of these early videos that do have professional sound because they were at that point trying to market themselves to a label. So they were making, kind of reel tapes, I guess, for shopping around. Same with what happened with Euphoria. You've got to ask yourself how many, hundreds of videos were shot in the making of that particular video, and they've all got to exist in professional form, right?
Yeah, I think Billy said something about this, that every show after, like starting with Melancholy, every concert has been professionally videotaped by the band, I think.
That wouldn't surprise me. And they may be, their approach to this archive opening may be kind of a mixed approach. Like they've already talked about releasing a DVD of the San Francisco residency shows, or, some more recent things. So I would imagine that it kind of, alternates between old and new, because I don't imagine that people can sustainably listen to a lot of that old stuff.
And if they are really trying to hook on new fans, I mean, right. Honestly, what's going to do it for a casual concert goer? Is it going to be, Spiteface from 1988, or is it going to be a Siamese Dream concert? I think more likely it'll be the Siamese Dream concert.
You can't even get a lot of those old songs in an actual record format. It doesn't drive additional revenue by any means.
Right.
So, as much as I'd like to hear a really great live version of She, I can't really, where am I going to buy it? Like after that, I guess. So
let's say the release is primarily songs we already have. Let's say that they do go with the older stuff, and they do just kind of maybe release like the self-titled and Moon demo tapes in a professional manner. Would you guys buy it?
Well, I'll go out first, put myself out here, and I'll go ahead and I'll buy it, because I'm not a poor college student anymore. So if it's a nice, pretty probably not jewel case anymore, but a slip case with a nice whole bunch of interesting photos, maybe some commentary from Billy and Jimmy, some value added beyond the music, definitely would purchase it. If it's MP3 downloads from the website, I might not even bother to download those, because I've already got all those songs on a MP.
What about you, Jill?
I kind of doubt that I would buy them. I don't know. I've heard them before. They're not something that I reliably go to listen to on a day-to-day basis. I would, truthfully, I'm a lot more interested in the newer stuff, or sort of, I don't know, what would I be most interested in? The early Melancholy / newer stuff. I don't know. I don't know that I would be that interested in it, even though I consider myself a pretty big Gish and pre-Gish fan. It just doesn't, but at the same time, they could do it very well and package it with the new EP that they intend to put out, or the new, something like that. I think they have already jumped on the bundling bandwagon, so I could definitely see them doing something like that. It's interesting to speculate on this stuff, because you just have no idea really what else are they interested in doing. So, and if it was a part of a membership package of an online fan club or something like that, I think that sure, I would consume it just to see what it's like and probably post about it. But I don't know that I would. I don't know what my buying pattern is going to be like for these archive shows. So.
Yeah, for me it kind of depends how much gets released. If they're releasing, a show a week or something, I'm not a poor college student anymore either, but I can't afford that to buy everything either. And like Andrew said, it does definitely make a difference to me whether there's a CD with artwork and
Right.
recollections or whatnot in it versus just a digital download, especially if it's an MP3 lossy download. If that's all it is, I mean, I've probably got the songs in better quality that's not, 128 kilobits encoded MP3. And, I mean, it kind of remains to be seen how they're going to distribute this stuff. I mean, I know they are working on smashingpumpkins.com. I believe there was a posting recently about that they're kind of looking for people to jump on and work for them, not in this respect. I think they were looking for writers or something like that, but there is definitely something going on over there with the website, and it may be, creating a distribution service for music, or it could be just kind of redoing the website for the future of the band.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, was it last week or 2 weeks ago that I think that they're really trying to ramp up the internal operations of the band too, because in reality, any of these initiatives, whether it's opening up the archives or starting an online fan club or whatever, take a lot of work. You look at all the people that they employ at some of the big fan clubs, Dave Matthews Band is a good example. They have, lots of full-time staff devoted to that kind of stuff. So I don't know what their internal bandwidth is going to be to run some of these programs. So,
and the economics of it probably have an impact on what they're going to do, because if they are going to release a hard copy CD with artwork, it costs money, and they're probably going to go with something that would appeal more to a mainstream audience. But on the other hand, that's also something that, maybe a lot of it doesn't sell as well to the hardcore fans. So, that's something they're going to have to figure out, I guess, now that they're kind of on their own and not tied to a label, is what they're going to do promotionally wise with this whole initiative.
And if they do end up doing some sort of actual physical pressing of CDs and so forth, I would imagine they take pre-orders for a set period of time, just to determine the demand for it and figure out, what long term is this kind of program going to be able to sustain in terms of number of units sold. So it's kind of a guessing game, I think, at this point, because they still seem a little bit in the dark about how big is their fan base anymore.
Right, and how dedicated is the fan base as far as, just buying everything they put out there. I think you're right, they will have to go with some sort of pre-order type thing just to kind of gauge, and they'll probably have to start slow. I mean, they're obviously not going to put 50 shows up there to download the first day. It's not really worth doing all that work if it's not going to make them some money to go towards future stuff that they're planning on.
Right, and I think a really cool sort of forum would be selling the shows live at the shows. That could be an interesting sort of memento of a concert. Actually, a friend of mine, her boyfriend tours with a couple of sort of well-known indie acts, notably like Sia and I'm forgetting Tom. I'm forgetting. They actually, in some cases in Europe, have the ability to basically live bootleg a show and offer it for sale at the end of the night. I would love to see the Pumpkins do something like that. I think it would be an amazing source of revenue and a really cool, way to bolster this program, I guess. I know it takes a substantial amount of resources to do that, but if indie rock acts can do it, surely the Pumpkins can.
Yeah, I think it's a company that actually does it, so it's not like the Pumpkins would even really need to be involved. I think there's a company that you hire them and they do it and they get a cut of the proceeds from it.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be really cool, actually.
And I think it's been around. I mean, this isn't a new thing. I remember hearing about that company probably 7 or 8 years ago. It was around the time that the Pumpkins broke up the first time, because I remember thinking, if only this had come around earlier. What could have been?
Well, it's an interesting business venture, to say the least. It's a pretty neat thought, but I don't know. It obviously will be a new step for them, and I think that it's difficult to gauge really what the interest level is right now, because I don't think you can really base any decision off of the sale of Zeitgeist or American Gothic or whatever, because they're just such different formats and different releases. So, and I think that there's a media component to new music that is not going to come with the archive opening. So you get a little, you get free publicity when you're releasing a new album or releasing a new set of songs or whatever. But, the adding of an old lost show to an archive is not going to generate a lot of, blog attention or media attention. Sort of addition of a program like that will initially attract attention, but I think that it really is difficult to determine what the interest is.
So do you know of any sales numbers for American Gothic? I don't remember hearing anything about that. It's kind of harder to get that now that it's all done through all these disparate online sales places.
I think Jeremy had dug it up at one point. I can't remember what the actual sales figures were. It's difficult, like you said, it's difficult to determine specifically what they are since they're mostly digital. And I don't even really have any idea of what the sales numbers were for the physical EP of American Gothic. I still haven't seen it at record stores here.
Was it released in the U.S.? I thought it was.
I don't think it was.
Only.
No.
Yeah, I would have imagined.
The UK, so you
Right.
can find it, the import bin record store, but yeah.
Right. I don't.
You won't find it at Target or Walmart.
Right, I would have imagined that here in New York I would have seen some imports of it. Not that I'm out scouring the record stores anymore, but it's sad, but I don't really go to record stores much anymore. It's too expensive.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't been to a local record store since I moved away from St. Louis, which was 4 years ago, I guess.
Actually, I have some pretty cool record stores in St. Louis, if I remember correctly. I've gotten some Pumpkins vinyl out there. I think I actually, this is a little bit of a diversion, but I actually found the Star Children 7-inch white vinyl at a little record store in somewhere outside of St. Louis, in the burbs, strangely enough. Oh.
That's even geekier than the stuff I was planning on talking about tonight, so it's good to see I got you going in the same direction.
Thanks.
Star Children rock. All right.
So let's start returning from the 1980s. Andrew, what happened this week in Pumpkin's history?
All right. Well, we're gonna first of all revisit 1996 once again. Bit of happier news from last week's depressing bit of news. August 19th, 1996 was the premiere of the Homer Palooza episode. Homer took Bart, Milhouse, and probably Nelson and Martin, maybe, to, I can't remember the name of the Lollapalooza-like show. But,
I believe it was called Hullabalooza.
Hullabalooza, very good. The Pumpkins were among the bands that were featured, and Jason put a post last week that explained the smiling politely joke very nicely.
And I tried to find a clip from this online to play, but the Fox Network's legal team has done an outstanding job of purging the internet of unlicensed Simpsons audio and video. I remember back in the day, I've been a Simpsons fan for a while, and I remember back in 1996 and 97, before the lawyers got clued in, you could find little real audio clips of Simpsons quotes just everywhere, but now it's pretty much all gone. So sorry guys, I was going to try to insert the little Homer Simpson smiling politely joke in here, but we're just gonna have to use our imaginations. Anything else?
And as the years later, in 1998, as the Adore album was being prepared for release, they released the Eva Adore single 2 weeks or so out in front of the album. So on it was actually May 18th in the UK, apparently, according to SPFC, and apparently there's some. Oh yeah, okay. So the vinyl is not known, but the CD came out 18th. So that Avador included Czarina and Once in a While, and Once in a While is personal favorite on the Pumpkin B-side, Quiet on the softer side of the Pumpkins. One of my favorite.
Jill, what'd you think of the Ava Adore single?
I remember actually when the single came out, and I had actually pre-ordered the vinyl to come to my house when it was released, and it's hard to believe that it's already 10 years ago to the day that sucker got released. But I remember, thinking, at that point I think there was a general sort of curiosity about where the band would move next with the the departure of Jimmy Chamberlin, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think they were hard without being too ironic, and but it was certainly a huge departure. And I remember listening to that single and hearing it on the radio and just wondering what the heck was going to happen. And of course, it was the Yelena era, so all of the new look of the band was very influenced by Billy Corgan's girlfriend at the time, or I don't know if she was quite his girlfriend at that time, but that sort of dark gothic black and white photography. And it was beautiful, and it was severe and very interesting. I bet my parents probably wondered what the heck I was into at that point. So I remember even getting that Adore vinyl when it came out with that beautiful, I think the CD of Adore does not do the original picture justice, that huge red flower opening to reveal the beautiful cover model for Adore. So I have fond memories of that time. So it should be interesting what we come up with for the Adore episode next week.
Yeah, and Jason actually mentioned Tsarina a couple of episodes ago, mentioning Billy's vocals sounding very different. And it's not just the vocals, that song in general, I don't even know if it sounds like the other outtakes from Adore. It just sounds very different, and it's not on any of the Adore outtake or demo tapes that we have, where Once in a While is. So it's definitely an interesting song.
And at that point, they'd taken, a solid year off, give or take a few sort of shows and here and there, but they'd taken quite a while off to kind of reinvent and reflect on what had happened. So it was certainly a departure, and I was quite excited to see them come to Kansas City on their Horde tour, even though it was not one of the club shows they played. I was quite excited. At that point, I think they'd announced their tour dates, and I don't know if I'd already had tickets, because I ended up winning those tickets for that summer. There was a July show that I got to go see, so I was really excited to hear what they had to bring.
Alright, well that's all we have this week. Tune in next week for the start of our Adore celebration, although we kind of started a bit early this week. But this week's Song of the Week is one of my favorite pre-Gish tunes, an interesting rendition of Razor from the Metro in Chicago on August 25th, 1990. I believe that's the show Jill mentioned earlier. And it features an interesting bluesy intro before they break out the classic Razor riffage. So good night, everybody. The Hipsters United podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Smashing Pumpkins or Warner Brothers Reprise Music. All opinions offered by panelists or guests of the Hipsters United podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of the Smashing Pumpkins. All audio used during the show is licensed for non-profit use per the terms and conditions on the Live Music Archive at archive.org. Intro music is from the Machina 2 album released for free download on the internet by the Smashing Pumpkins in August of 2000.